So Riley was diagnosed with leukemia in April of 2012, and she was 6 years old at the time and in kindergarten. She had a string of illnesses going on preceding the actual diagnosis, pneumonia, various colds and viruses, and I just kind of thought it was, typical illnesses, a harsh winter, allergies acting up. And then she came home covered in bruises one day, and she couldn't explain them, and I couldn't explain them. And so the little warning flag started going off. I grew more concerned at that point. And a few days later, I went to check on her at night, and she was just burning up with fever, and she was breathing very rapid, very shallow. So at that moment, my training as a nurse kicked in, and things just started firing in my head, and I went straight to the computer and I Googled leukemia. And it was going through that checklist, and that gut instinct told me that possibly that was what was going on, but of course in that moment of you can't be this overreactive crazy mother kicked in. So the next day we went to her pediatrician and they ran blood work, and a few hours later we found ourselves on an ambulance going to Seattle Children's, where she started her treatment. And since then, she has been in treatment continuously, and she's had over 600 doses of chemotherapy and 12 rounds of cranial radiation and tons of other procedures like MRIs and CAT scans, lumbar punctures, bone marrow aspirates. And she's still not done. She has a few months left. She'll be done in June, so we have 4 months left before we're done with chemo. But we know that the journey for her illness doesn't end at the end of treatment. The drugs that they use to treat the leukemia are very toxic, and they have lasting effects, and they're all over 25 years old. We don't have any new drugs to treat these kids, and because we've been able to track how the survivors do, we know that these kids suffer heart damage, multi-organ failure, cognitive issues, learning difficulties, and some kids unfortunately have a secondary cancer later on down the road. So we value the time and effort that you guys put in, because we know that it's important that we find better treatments that are less harmful to our kids. So that is our mission through you guys, is to raise funds and awareness so we have better treatments.
And I'm Riley, and I'm in 2nd grade. I like art. I have a dog named Boudreaux. I have a big brother, and I think that's all. I think art is my hobby.
Yeah. Drawing or painting?
I like to paint on my easel that I got on Christmas. And I have this stick horse that I like to ride around the house almost every day, so I guess that's a hobby too.
She brings Rocket as her stick horse, and she brings Rocket to clinical with her, so all the doctors and all the nurses at Children's Hospital know Rocket and expect him to be there every week. And they're great. They love to see Rocket. Riley is in school. The way treatment works, for girls it's 2.5 years, and for boys it's 3 full years. The first year is very intense, and during that time Riley was not in school. There's 5 different phases, and you go through the first 4 phases of treatment during the first year. And each phase is slightly different based on what medications they're given, and the dosages and how frequently they're given. So during the phase called delayed intensification, that was when we were essentially living at the hospital. We were there all the time, multiple times during the week. Right now we're in what's called long-term maintenance, and that is kind of like the light at the end of the tunnel. Right now she takes an oral chemo medicine every single day, and we go in if anything comes up, because she has a port that is a direct mode for bacterial blood infections. So if she gets any fevers over 101, we go directly to the ER and they'll draw blood cultures. So there are plenty of unplanned visits simply because, especially during cold and flu season, they're exposed to so much, and most of the time it is just a cold, but we have to be safe and always go to the hospital. So in addition to the unplanned visits, right now we go once a month for IV chemo, and on every third month she gets a lumbar puncture where they put chemotherapy directly into her spine. Riley was kind of a unique case at diagnosis because they always check to make sure that the children at diagnosis don't have blast cells or the cancer cells in their cerebral spinal fluid. And Riley tested negative. She did not have it. Unfortunately, during some questioning, I told them that she had been having some visual changes. So when they were putting her port in, they looked into her eyes and they saw that her optic nerves were affected by the cancer. So we knew that at that point she would have to have cranial radiation. So that was pretty intense. It was every day for 3 weeks, and she did great. She did not have to go under anesthetic. A lot of kids at that age, they have to put under every radiation treatment, because they essentially bolt them down to the radiation table with a mask. And Riley was a big girl. She did it all completely awake, and she did great. Does something inspire you to go?
The art room.
The art room. Riley loves the art room at the hospital.
So do you want to be an artist when you grow up?
I'm going to be an artist and a vet.
Our first exposure to LLS was actually back in Seattle. We met another family while we were living in the Ronald McDonald House, and their son was diagnosed with a brain tumor, a terminal tumor. It's terminal at diagnosis. And his father was a firefighter, and for many years had participated in the Scott Firefighter Climb that is sponsored by the LLS. And it's all for leukemia and lymphoma, and he never knew anybody with leukemia. And when he met Riley, he said it renewed his purpose in doing that climb. So for the last 2 years, Mr. Steve has climbed for Riley. He's currently doing it right now. He's fundraising in Riley's honor. And also his son, because his son unfortunately passed in November. So that's also given him additional incentive to, really kick cancer in the butt. He's a man on a mission. He's very angry with this disease right now. And so that was our first exposure to it. And then we met several of the ladies from the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society at the baseball game, and they connected with us and have been so kind and supportive and very helpful to us. They have invited us to go to seminars for back to school. So there are doctors there that have advised us on how to integrate Riley back into a classroom and what kind of learning challenges she might have due to the chemotherapy and radiation. So it's just been a wonderful support system for us. As parents, we've never gone through this before, so it's nice to have someone kind of take your hand and lead you through the whole process.